Metronidazole is such an interesting medication. Um, it's a nitroimidazole antibiotic that's been around since the 1960s and is used to treat all sorts of infections, from bacterial vaginosis to
Yeah,
amoebiasis.
exactly. I'm curious. What really sets it apart from other antibiotics?
Well, for one thing, its mechanism is pretty unique. It's a prodrug. It basically becomes active in low oxygen environments, like inside anaerobic bacteria, by receiving an electron from ferredoxin, which then forms nitroso radicals that damage the microbial DNA.
Right, that's pretty cool. So, it only really works in environments lacking oxygen? How does that affect its safety profile in humans?
Exactly. Because our cells operate with normal oxygen levels, so metronidazole tends to spare them, which is why you see fewer effects on aerobic human cells. But, you know, it does have its share of side effects like nausea, a
Yeah,
metallic
I've heard
taste,
about that.
and sometimes headaches.
I also read that it comes in various forms: oral tablets, creams, gels, even IV infusions. That's a lot of versatility, isn't it?
Absolutely. Its multi-route administration is one of its strengths. It can be given by mouth for infections like giardiasis or bacterial vaginosis, topically for rosacea or fungating wounds, and even via slow IV infusion for more severe systemic infections.
Uh huh, very practical indeed. Speaking of rosacea, isn't it intriguing that metronidazole is used for its anti inflammatory effects there? How does that work?
Yeah, that's actually one of the more underrated aspects. It seems to reduce reactive oxygen species and inhibit factors like NF-kappa B, which in turn lowers the production of inflammatory cytokines. So, it may be doing double duty, both antibacterial and immunomodulatory.
Right, fascinating dual action. But I wonder, couldn't these immunomodulatory effects also create some tricky scenarios when dealing with infections?
That's a fair point. While the anti-inflammatory properties help in conditions like rosacea and periodontitis, there's still a debate on how much of its effect is antibacterial versus immunomodulatory. Some experts argue that the reduction in inflammation might actually mask the
Yeah,
severity
I
of an
see what you mean.
infection.
And then there's the whole issue of resistance. I've heard that resistance, especially among bacteria like Bacteroides, is becoming more common. What's the mechanism there?
Right, resistance is emerging, and it often involves reduced activation of metronidazole, like through impaired oxygen scavenging in some parasites or via Nim genes in bacteria, which encode enzymes that reduce the drug to inactive forms. It's like the microbes are slowly learning to
Yeah,
dodge
that's
its
a
action.
concerning trend. It must complicate treatment then, right? Especially if you need to double the dose to overcome that resistance?
Exactly. In some cases, higher doses might work for resistant strains, but that also raises concerns about adverse effects. Prolonged or high dose therapy can be linked to neurotoxicity, like peripheral neuropathy or even central nervous system toxicity in rare
Right,
cases.
that seems like a delicate balance. What about the drug interactions? I recall that alcohol can cause some issues when taken with metronidazole.
Yes, that's an important point. Drinking alcohol while on metronidazole might trigger a disulfiram-like reaction, nausea, vomiting, and flushing. Though interestingly, not every study agrees on the mechanism. Plus, it's known to inhibit the CYP2C9 enzyme, so it might interact with medications like warfarin.
Absolutely, caution is key there. I see that metronidazole is also prescribed in some surgical cases to prevent post-operative infections. How does that tie into its overall profile?
Right? It's often used prophylactically because of its effectiveness against anaerobic bacteria common in intra-abdominal and periodontal infections. Its broad spectrum is really a big plus here.
Yeah, that really highlights its versatility. Now let's talk about its history. Isn't it one of those drugs that really stood the test of time?
Definitely, it was first used commercially in the 1960s in France, and its inclusion in the WHO's list of essential medicines speaks volumes about its global importance.
Right, that's quite an impressive legacy. And it's interesting how it's not just for humans. Veterinary medicine uses metronidazole too, correct?
Yes, exactly. It's used in treating infections in dogs, cats, and even fish. But in veterinary practice, there's a caution because of its potential carcinogenicity in animal studies, which, while not conclusively shown in humans, still tweaks the prescription
Right,
guidelines.
always got to consider those risks. Speaking of risks, the potential mutagenic and carcinogenic effects in animal models seem a bit alarming. Is there a solid consensus on its safety regarding cancer?
That's one of the challenges. Some studies in animals have suggested metronidazole might be carcinogenic, leading to its classification as reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen by certain agencies. However, human studies haven't consistently confirmed a significant risk. So it remains a topic under discussion among experts.
Yeah, that kind of nuance is common in drug safety discussions. It sounds like the benefits often outweigh the potential risks, especially when it comes to acute infections.
Exactly. In most cases, the efficacy in treating anaerobic infections and protozoal diseases means its use is warranted, provided that healthcare professionals weigh the risks and manage
Right?
dosages
A classic risk
appropriately.
benefit analysis. One last aspect, what about its pharmacokinetics? How quickly is it absorbed and eliminated?
It's quite efficient, actually. Oral formulations have about 80% bioavailability, and peak plasma levels are usually reached in 1 to 2 hours. Its half-life is around 8 hours in adults, though this can vary in infants and premature
Yeah, that
babies.
rapid absorption is definitely beneficial in acute treatments. Overall, it seems like metronidazole has a massive footprint in both human and animal medicine. Its multifaceted nature really makes it stand out.
Absolutely. From its unique activation in low oxygen environments and multiple administration routes to its anti-inflammatory side benefits, metronidazole is a prime example of how versatile a drug can be.
Right? It's a true workhorse in the medical world. Thanks for walking me through that. There's a lot more nuance than I initially thought.
Anytime. It's always fascinating to break down these layers, especially with a drug that has been around for decades, yet continues to evolve in its applications and research.
Yeah, definitely enlightening. I guess it all comes down to balancing efficacy with safety and keeping an eye on emerging resistance. That's the essence of modern medicine, right?
Exactly. It's all about managing risks while harnessing significant therapeutic benefits. Metronidazole remains a cornerstone for treating a variety of infections, and it's exciting to see ongoing research into its anti-inflammatory and immunomodulatory roles, despite the challenges.
Right on, a perfect example of medicine's ever evolving landscape.